Just off her defeat in Georgia's special runoff election, Senator Kelly Loeffler says the violence that erupted inside the U.S. Capitol building made her reconsider her plan to challenge the Electoral College certification. It was just 3 days ago that she joined President Trump on stage at a rally in Dalton, vowing to challenge Georgia's results. Joe Ripley, live in Atlanta with more on the senator's change of heart.
You know, Sheba, when you think about it, a lot has changed for Senator Kelly Loeffler from that night in Dalton Monday to now. She lost her Senate runoff race to Reverend Raphael Warnock, and now yesterday, with the violence, the Capitol storming of the Capitol has forced her to change her mind. She said she condemned the violence there in a tweet, calling that violence abhorrent and saying we must stand united as one nation under God. Loeffler originally planned to stand against the ratification of Electoral College votes in a show of support for President Trump, but Loeffler pulled a 180 after planning to join House members from Georgia in the effort to object. Congressman Jody Hice from Greensboro first brought up Georgia's challenge in the chamber, Hice claiming there was an unprecedented amount of fraud in the election. Officials have not confirmed that, and with Loeffler pulling her support, Georgia's objection failed.
Prior to the actions and events of today, we did, but following the events of today, it appears that some senators have withdrawn their objection.
I cannot now in good conscience object to the certification of these electors. Thus, there is no excuse for the events that took place in these chambers today, and I pray that America never suffers such a dark day again.
Loeffler's decision shows a breaking with President Trump and her support of him in trying to overturn the election results in his bid to do that, but Georgia's objection ultimately failed because of her decision to pull.